Thank you everyone for joining us today for our AGU AGI Heads and Chairs webinar. My name is Leila Gonzalez, and joining us today also is Renoe Asher, who's the Assistant Director for Grants and Education Programs at AGU. Eva Kostu unfortunately can't join us today, but she's the Program Manager at the AGU Bridge Program, and Christopher Keene will be sitting in with us. He's the Director of Geoscience Profession and Higher Education at AGI. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to Renoe to kick off today's webinar.
All right, thank you, Leila. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. I'm really excited to share with you the expertise of our two panelists today. They're going to tell you a little bit about how you can work on your broader impact statements and things like that for grants with this amazing toolkit that they have developed over the years. So joining us today as our first panelist is Janice McDonnell. She's the co-PI and at the Center for Advancing Research, Impact in Society, or ARIS, at Rutgers University. And our second panelist today is Dr. Susan Renoe. She's the Associate Vice Chancellor in the Division of Research, Innovation, and Impact, and the Executive Director of ARIS at the University of Missouri. So Janice and Susan, please take it away. We're so excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you very much, and thank you all for joining us today. Our agenda is fairly quick because we want to spend a lot of time with your questions and in discussion. I'm going to give a brief introduction to ARIS and broader impacts, and then I'm going to turn over to Janice, who's going to talk about our BI toolkit, and then we'll have hopefully plenty of time for questions and answer. Feel free to put things in the chat. We are pretty informal, so if we want to answer questions, so if there's something, just let us know. So ARIS has been around since 2018. We actually started a community of practice way back in 2014, but we started our center in 2018. And our mission is really to amplify the impacts of research for the benefit of society, really bringing communities and research together. We serve as a hub for expertise in the promotion of research impact and specifically broader impacts. We try to advance scholarship. We want to steward the growing field of practice. We have a wonderful community of practice that has more than 1,800 members worldwide, something we're very proud of. We work across academic institutions, governmental agencies, not-for-profits, industry, all of that. We support investigators from all fields. That's something that's really important, is we don't just support the STEM fields, but we support the arts and humanities and all research fields and the professionals and partners who collaborate with them for impact. And then we partner with many agencies like the National Science Foundation across the US, but also internationally who are aligned in our vision for research impact. Our website is researchandsociety.org. As a virtual center, it is the hub for all things ARIS. We just did a massive redesign and reorganization that we're really proud of. We think that it's really simple. We hope to find tools and resources and events. So I really encourage you to bookmark that and to send people there, particularly your faculty, because there's great resources for broader impacts. We're going to highlight the toolkit, but there are more there. We are getting really excited about our Broader Impact Summit that is happening in just a few weeks in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And then we also give out really wonderful awards. We just have announced the 2025 awardees. If you have researchers or programs on your campus that you think would be exemplary in terms of community engagement, public engagement, and broader impacts, please, 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 please nominate them for an ARIS award. We love to honor them and to share that information. So what are broader impacts? What is that? What does it mean? So anyone who submitted a proposal to the National Science Foundation knows that there are two merit review criteria. One is the intellectual merit, so that's the potential to grow the scientific discipline, and the other is the broader impacts, and that's really the potential for this project to have a benefit to society. We're going to focus, of course, on the broader impacts. NSF suggests 10 suggested areas of impact. Now, these are not supposed to be exhaustive or preclusive. They're supposed to be something that gets you excited and thinking about ways to benefit society, but they're not the only way to do it. The first is full participation of women, persons with disabilities, and underrepresented minorities in STEM, also known as broadening participation. Second is improve STEM education and educator development at any level. I think that's really important because it goes everywhere from pre-K all the way through lifelong learning. And that's not just students, but also teachers. The third is increase public scientific literacy and public engagement with science. So thinking about your science cafes, thinking about programs at your local libraries, things that bring the public into the research enterprise. Number 4 is improve well-being of individuals and society. A lot of the broader impacts programs that we see focus on the first 4 areas that I just mentioned, but there is a real increase in emphasis on the next ones I'm going to talk about. One is the development of a diverse STEM workforce. Workforce development is a key priority at the federal level, but also at the state and local levels. Increase partnerships with academia, industry, and others. It is only going to become more and more important for us to partner as institutions of higher education with industry. So growing those partnerships. Improve national security, use of science and technology to inform public policy, economic competitiveness. If you've seen the new EDA tech hubs and of course the NSF engines, economic development also is really important. And then enhance infrastructure for research and education. And with that, I'm going to stop talking about broader impacts in general and turn it over to Janice to talk about one of our favorite tools, the ARIS Broader Impacts Toolkit.
Great. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'm happy to be here with you today. I want to share a couple of resources that I hope will be useful to you and your departments. The first one we'll talk about is our ARIS Broader Impact Toolkit. You can see the address right there. It's also linked from the website that Susan mentioned earlier, our ARIS website. So what is this toolkit? It's really a collection of digital documents and interactive web tools that are designed to provide guidance for and effective practices for researchers as they try to think about improving their broader impact and outcomes for their research programs. It can be used by obviously by researchers who are proposing to NSF and other agencies for research funding. It can also be used by people like myself who are BI professionals who assist researchers in their work. And they can also be used by partners who are participating in broader impact work with university researchers. So there's a wide range of tools here, and I'm going to walk you through each of them. And just to further add, and I'll come back to this towards the end of our presentation, but the toolkit is really about, it's just a collection of documents, or we call it a boundary object, that helps span all of these interdisciplinary dimensions of how we think about broader impact and engaged scholarship in our university work. I'll start at the bottom of just helping our researchers conceptualize what we call a broader impact identity that complements and expands their research and their intellectual merit work. We also want to help universities with professionally developing faculty to be able to achieve their goals related to broader impacts. We want to help with assessment, evaluation and assessment of broader impact work to do it as well as we can and learn those effective practices to do that work. And then finally, all of that rolls up into institutional change, where we're looking to kind of highlight and promote this idea of community engaged scholarship and celebrating the broader impact work that our researchers are doing. So the tools themselves have a wide variety of things. The first thing I'll point out is our Quick Start page, which is basically an FAQ of all of the different questions that researchers typically have about broader impact, and it directs them to a particular tool that might help them answer their question. So this is a useful place to start and a good kind of overview of what the toolkit can offer our researchers. The first document that I highly recommend everyone checks out is the Broader Impacts Guiding Principles document. This document was created by a committee of leaders, and it's really a quick guide to BI through the lens of the standard 5 NSF questions, review questions. And it's really great for those that want an orientation or an overview to broader impact work. And it really gives you that nice overview. And again, it was developed by a committee of peers. So it really is a very useful document to kind of get your feet wet and get started. I'll also point you to our wizard. This actually, the Broader Impact Wizard predates ARIS. It was developed by another NSF program called COSI, Centers for Ocean Education Excellence, Ocean Science Education Excellence. And it really has kind of two major components. One is the planning guide, which has been expanded under our ARIS leadership here under our ARIS Center. And that's just a collection of videos and information that's organized around some of the big ideas or topic areas that researchers have to think about when they're developing a broader impacts project. And then the second piece is an actual planning tool. It's an interactive planning tool that helps researchers actually construct a broader impact statement by filling in fields on a interactive form, and it spits out a really nice outline for their broader impact work, complete with references and giving them ideas for how they can flesh out their broader impact statement effectively. So at the end of the day, the wizard is really trying to help with effective planning and proposal writing. And the ideas around making their objectives smart, making them achievable, substantial, accessible for the audience they're trying to reach, and probably most importantly, something that they're personally interested in, which is really, really key. Let's move on to the next one, and we'll talk a little bit about our checklist. Our broader impacts checklist is one of the most utilized tools in our broader impact toolkit. It's an interactive assessment of all of the major kind of points that you need to include in a broader impact statement. And it's interactive, so you can literally check them off and use it to assess where you are in your proposal writing. So if we move to the next slide, which is my favorite, and that is the rubric. And this is one of our more recent tools that we've used that we've developed. And this is really a great tool for really two purposes. One, in kind of doing red team reviews of large proposals. And secondly, as a panel review tool. If you've been asked to be on an NSF panel, this tool can be really helpful in helping you develop a review for a proposal. Again, they use the 5 NSF questions. You can advance it again, Susan. And the 5 NSF questions, and it provides a set of benchmarks or on a Likert scale around the poor to excellent to help you sort of judge those different question areas under a domain and then a value statement on the Likert scale. So it's a useful thing to check out and take a look at. If we hit the next slide, I'll just mention that we are working very hard on this toolkit and assessing it. And we were fortunate enough to have some NSF dollars to do that with 10 different institutions around the country. And we partnered with the Journal of Community Engaged Scholarship to produce a special edition that kind of summarizes that work. And it's really comes down to these 4 big areas that we think the toolkit helps institutions achieve. And the first one is around supporting institutional development and change in the area of BI promotion, development, and community engagement. And we had several articles, the 2 that I've highlighted here, McDonnell and Merchant, that really dive into that topic of how the toolkit can help with that piece. The next thing we found through several different articles is the help around jumpstarting project and proposal development and assessment. And I would definitely point you to Iverson et al. And Penley and Shahid for some work in that. And also Bosley et al. Jocelyn Bosley at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln did a really nice job looking at the rubric around career proposals, which is obviously really important for faculty development, and career proposals are key for our early career folks. So definitely check that out. And then the other thing we found is that the toolkit can really help provide support for professional development of researchers and BI professionals in BI work. And Johnson et al. And Willoughby and Bug highlight that really well in the issue. Definitely encourage you to check that out. And then finally, this one's kind of exciting and future looking of how do we develop research frameworks that really incorporate the Engaged Scholarship and the idea of working with communities to develop broader impact projects. And Telai and Chen and Yilham and Torres and Grant et al. All focus on that as part of their work with the toolkit. So just wanted to highlight that. The journal is available online, and I'll drop the link for you before we wrap up today. But that's that's kind of a nice component of this that we were able to do with our ARIS project. Okay. So last thing I want to highlight for everyone is our work with our ARIS Fellows program. And just to give you some context, again, we're looking at building a positive, broader impact identity for researchers. And what does that mean exactly? If you click the next piece, it's really about finding out what researchers love to do, where their passions are. And that's sort of in this Venn diagram, the idea of you and your capacity, what you can do, and then finally what you should do. And looking at when all of those worlds combine, you find that, sort of impact sweet spot, which is right in the middle there, of how you can develop the most effective project for your particular needs as a researcher. So we're really interested in that. We provide a lot of faculty development around that topic, and are very excited about offering that through our fellowship program. So in the next slide, we have a brand new program that Susan and I have been working on, that really aspires to kind of cultivate that innovation and leadership among researchers that are working on broader impact initiatives. So the objective of this fellowship program is really to highlight and expand and elevate that BI work, strengthen the network of researchers who are interested in BI, and then finally disseminate effective BI practices through publications and presentations. So that's really, really an important component of what this fellowship's all about. It'll have 3 distinctive phases around orientation and professional development. We'll spend the year doing project work and networking amongst these research leaders. And then finally, some evaluation and reflection, which we hope will really culminate around publications. So we're very excited about this. We're looking for this first pilot round to attract some tenure track folks that are either in the tenure track or tenured. And we want them from a variety of career stages, from early to mid-career to advanced. And as Susan said earlier, in all disciplines, typically funded by NSF. And all the applicants should have experience conducting or participating in BI projects, so they can bring that experience to the group. We have a very short application that'll be interviewed prior to, and it'll also be interviewed prior to the final selection. And then we will have a panel of ARIS leaders, members, and advisors that will choose and select this first group. So next slide shows you, again, we're looking for folks from basic research, use-inspired, different stages of the tenure stream, different levels of expertise, and then obviously that diversity of viewpoints on broader impact work. So that's that. We are offering a $5,000 stipend with, again, the idea that publications are a key outcome. And we'll be working with this team over the course of the next year, and are very excited to start that process this summer of our first in-person meeting. So that's just another opportunity we wanted to make sure that this group is very much aware of. And with that, I think that's our last slide. This is how you can get in touch with Susan and I, and we'd be very excited to chat with you a little bit more about all of this, now that you have the overview and the lay of the land of what we're doing on these pieces. So thank you. Thank you again for attending.
Great. That was a nice presentation. And if there are folks in the audience who have questions you'd like to ask, please raise your hand or post them in the chat. And while we're doing this, I'm wondering if it would be helpful if maybe you can just put the email addresses in the chat, so that way we can pull the slides down while we're having a conversation, if that's okay to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. So while you're doing that, maybe I can just ask one question to just get us all started. Do you hold workshops on a regular basis that people who want to, get into maybe a little bit more depth on any one of those FAQ things that you had on that cover page that you can learn a bit more? Do you do regular workshops and webinars and things like that?
Yes, we do. I'll start off, Susan, you can jump in, but we do. We have a director of education and professional development that that is doing a lot in that work. As a matter of fact, we have a couple webinars coming up. I'll put the announcements on that into the chat. But yeah, our what we've been doing a lot is working with broader impact professionals and then having the co-hosting with them faculty development workshops for their researchers to help, sort of build the capacity at different institutions. So that's been kind of a typical way of doing it, but there's many ways to achieve these goals, right? So we're open to all of them. Susan, what do you think? Do you want to mention ORIC too? That might be a nice time to do that.
Absolutely. So we do a couple things. So we do periodically webinars and other trainings that people can sign up for. We also do in-person and virtual institutional training. So like today, part of our team is doing an institutional training. In fact, the next 4 Fridays, we'll be doing institutional training for one of our partner schools. So we're open to do that virtually. We also come to campus to do that. And then we run a program called ORIC, which is designed to build up an institution's research impact capacity. It's a 2-year program. We just selected this year's cohort. So we'll be opening up the call for applications probably late fall, early winter next year. So it's something that this is now the 5th cohort. We've had more than 30 schools who have come through, but it's not just for institutions of higher ed. We've also had several nonprofit organizations who are interested in doing more work in this space. So we have tools for individuals. We have resources for institutions. We have, one-off webinars or presentations or visits. And then we also have something that is intensive, that is a 2-year program.
Questions? Other folks in the audience have questions?
While people are thinking about that, I'll also mention that we run an annual conference every year. This time it's in about 3 weeks. We'll be in San Juan, Puerto Rico. We're very excited about that. It alternates around different parts of the country and then close to the NSF, which is our major funder. So somewhere usually in the Washington, D.C. area, but we really try to make sure that we get into someone's backyard so they don't have to travel as far every time. That's something I highly encourage you to think about attending.
I'm also putting in the chat the link to the research fellowship, which I think Susan may have put in earlier. Yes, she did. Okay, so there's that. Happy to talk to more. We have a recorded webinar on that has a little bit more detail than what we went over today for the fellowship program. But just wanted to put that in there too, so that you have that.
So we're getting a question if slides will be available. So Susan and Janice, will you be sharing your slides as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we certainly can. Yeah,
okay.
No problem.
Yeah,
Janice,
we'll get those
question in the
posted.
chat about limiting the research fellowship to tenure track faculty. Do you want to take that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So because it's a pilot year, we thought we would limit it to tenure and tenure track. I expect in future iterations of it that we will have different cohorts of different types of researchers, whether they be, grant funded researchers or extension professionals. I think having a group that has a common set of values and threads on their work that makes it easier for them to collaborate and generate a community of practice. So this first round is really, experimental and helping us kind of figure out the challenges and the opportunities associated with bringing researchers, more formally as leaders into the ARIS Center. So I fully expect we'll do more of, more diversity of research faculty in different cohorts. As a matter of fact, I just had a pretty extensive conversation with a lot of extension researchers who really wanted to see us work with them specifically on ARIS training. So it was kind of an exciting conversation. I haven't even had a chance to talk to Susan about yet, but there's lots of lots of good things that can come from that.
Yeah, we're seeing another question here from Heather McDonnell. She's asking if you're interested in including two-year college faculty in the cohorts in the
Hi,
future.
Heather. It's good to see you, Heather. Yes, I think so. I think it's just so important to get that diversity of faculty involved, and two-year faculty are so important to that work. I have the pleasure of working with a lot of two-year faculty in one of my other projects and at community colleges and universities. So yes, absolutely, Heather.
So you can raise your hand or type in the chat. Either way works. Leela will unmute you if you choose to speak. It's very easy to do.
Yeah, while you're thinking, I wanted to just mention there's the toolkit can feel very dense for those of you that haven't used it. It takes a while to kind of get through and sort through all the various resources. There is one resource, and I'll put the direct link in the chat, that is a great place to start, if you will. There's a 4-minute video that kind of walks through the basics of a broader impact statement or project. And a lot of researchers find this as a helpful place to start. So I just direct you to this intro page that if you're feeling a little like, wow, that was a lot, it was, and that's a great place to start to try to orient yourself to what what the toolkit has to offer. So highly recommend that 4-minute video. I didn't want to play it today. I wanted to make sure we had time for questions, but this is a good place to start.
Hi, Tanya. Good to see you. I can't see you, but see you. Is that your question, or do you have something else? I see your hand is raised.
Okay. Hi, Janet and Susan.
Hi.
Thank you. It's always great to hear the presentation, and excited about presenting at the summit. I'm excited about a lot of things. I won't go on about that, but what I'm finding as I work with investigators across campus is the last minute, waiting until the last minute to do the broader impacts work, even though we're like, think about it ahead of time, work with the people who are in your audience, reach out to the community. Do you have any strategies or any frameworks or ideas about how to have people be thinking about that early and throughout their career, not just like a check the box kind of approach?
Yeah. Do you want to take that, Susan, or would you like me to?
Why don't you go first and then I'll follow up?
Yeah, so Tanya, I feel what you're saying. It's often very easy to wait to the last minute because there's so much to worry about in submitting an NSF proposal, and you go with your intellectual merit first because that's the key thing that you're proposing for in many cases. But I think kind of instilling the idea that the partnerships, they don't have to do it all, is normally what I say. And building those partnerships takes a little bit of time. So the more time we have to build the partnerships, the better the proposal reads. And the more fulfilling and valuable the broader impact becomes for the researcher as they develop their own skills. So it takes time and practice, to sort of build that culture. So I think it's a timeline thing of just kind of underscoring the intrinsic value of having those partnerships and not feeling like they have to do it all, that there are people out there within their university and within the community that want to help and participate in their research. And that, that's a real benefit and a real opportunity. What else would you say, Susan?
I think part of it is it's the nature of grants and feeling like you're always rushing to get to the deadline. But we know that the best broader impacts and the ones that review really well are the ones that are integrated with the research. So if you can start thinking about what you want to do for your broader impacts when you're at the initial planning stage for the research and develop those partnerships, that makes them so much better. You can tell when you're reviewing a proposal, the ones that have really been very thoughtful about integrating those two things together. You can also tell when people have been working with community partners or campus partners for a long time and that there's a strong relationship there. I will also just say that we are seeing more and more partners who won't partner with researchers, who won't come alongside with a project at the last minute anymore because they've been burned before. So part of that is giving yourself a chance to really get in there and have conversations so that you don't find yourself at the last minute panicking because you don't have it. So, you know, really be thinking about that from the beginning. And I'll also plug in, put a plug in for evaluation. We involve our external evaluator, and you don't have to have an external evaluator on all projects, but we have one for our center. We involve that team in every aspect, from the writing of our grants to planning, programming, and other things, so that the evaluation is also baked into that. Kristen, I see you have a question about DEI and where that sits in terms of broader impacts. Has NSF or NIH given any guidance? Director Panchanathan has put out some statements. NSF also has a web page that has a lot of FAQs and things. We can drop that in the chat in just a few minutes. What I would say is a couple things about broader impacts. And this is not new to the last few months. People many times conflate broader impacts and broadening participation and think that they're the exact same thing. And if you looked at that diagram that I showed of the 10 potential areas, broadening participation is a really key component of broader impacts, but it's only one of 10. You know, we talked about economic competitiveness and workforce development and partnership and those kind of things. So I think that's the first thing to understand, is that broader impacts is more than broadening participation. I will say that the things that I've heard that have reviewed very well related to broadening participation are things that relate to institutions, community level things that aren't specifically targeting, you know, particular individual groups. But I will say that, you know, right now NSF is open for business. We are still under the same 2 merit review criteria, intellectual merit and broader impacts. And so we are counseling reviewers to still write strong broader impacts that are related to the research itself, that are related to the 10 potential areas, and are something that are personal. You know, Janice mentioned earlier, building an impact identity. We find that broader impacts activities that are personal and meaningful to the PI and to the research are ones that are strong, that get done, that are impactful. So really focus on those kind of things. And I'll drop the link to the NSF page in the chat.
Yeah, and I would just add, and kind of building on the question Tanya asked earlier too, is sometimes, and I just spoke to a researcher yesterday that is really built that broader impact identity to the point where the opportunities for his broader impact work equal the grant opportunities for his intellectual merit work. And so not thinking of it as a something last minute box checking exercise, but more as an area of development that can open up new opportunities, including partnerships and in many cases funding opportunities. Speaking with this math professor who had modeled an effective practice from Wayne University in Detroit, Michigan, for something called Math Corps, now has, you know, more money in his broader impact work and is impacting hundreds of New Jersey students with improving their math skills proficiency than he's done as a very high level mathematician here. So it's just an interesting kind of culture shift, right? And thinking about the opportunities that broader impacts provides. So I just wanted to mention that as a underscoring to that identity piece that that we talked about earlier.
Other questions, other thoughts? If you can't remember your questions now and you think of them later on, and if you grab the email addresses for either Susan or Janice, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer your questions after the fact. So as Leela mentioned in the beginning, you'll get, when you registered, because you registered, you will get a link to the recording. You can share that with your colleagues. You can pass it on or watch it again or whatever you need to do and get all the details. So if you missed anything or arrived late, it's not a problem. All right, so if you are interested in joining the AGU Heads and Chairs community, or you have interest in participating in our workshop that happens annually at our meeting in December, please contact me at the email address, and I'll drop that in the chat shortly as well. And if you could go to the next slide, we have another webinar coming up in the month of May, and that is all about a report, a National Academies report that was published not that long ago, and it's all about transforming undergraduate geoscience teaching. So there are some really great recommendations here for department heads and department chairs and also faculty. So if you're interested in that, please join us on May 2nd, which webinars happen at 1 o'clock. And if you have missed any of our previous webinars, not only from earlier this year, but also from previous seasons, you can certainly find them on AGI's webinar page. You can go all the way back to, more than 5-6 years to find them and search them by theme if you're interested in that. And with that, I think that's it for today. Thank you very much for your time. We hope you'll join us again in the future, and have a great rest of your day and your weekend. So thank you very much.